Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shilanski in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. And today we're going to talk about stupid people who play stupid games. And guess what they win? Yep, stupid prizes. So I'm going to share with you a personal story, and then I'm going to have it so closely tie into the next part of this conversation. And hopefully you'll glean a little bit of negotiating advice and how to deal with these type of situations should you ever encounter one. And I should preface this with the time I was working with one of my first business clients that had gotten sued, and they got sued by a really big, large corporation, much, much bigger than they were. And they were getting sued for non-compete violations. And there's this great like a lot of people subscribe to the myth that if you have non-compete clauses, they don't hold up. That is a myth. That is not true at all. If non-compete clauses did not hold up in court, guess what? They wouldn't be a clause that is in all of the employment engagements. They just wouldn't be there. So this small business client I was working with, he was getting sued by his former employer, much, much larger company than him. And they definitely had in-house counsel, and they had the means to fight this and to take it as far as they absolutely wanted to. So he was getting sued for an astronomical number at the time. It was like $4 million. And he was sweating. I mean, he was sick to his stomach. He was like, what do I do? Do I divorce my wife? Do I, file for bankruptcy? Do we shut all this down? I mean, he's just reeling. He can't sleep. His blood pressure's through the roof. He's not eating. And he is just sick to his stomach because he got a lawsuit. He got an attorney's letter sent to him saying, hey, we're going to sue you. Here's a copy of the paperwork. And you violated your non-compete agreements. And we're going to sue you for $4 million. And so I went in and I sought the counsel of my dad before I called a client. And I said, hey, listen, this is just what happened because, Floyd Shilanski, he is a master of many, many trades. And so he said, he looked at it, reviewed the stuff, and he said, don't worry about it. You're going to end up settling out of court for far less than this. And I said, no, they're going to shut the whole thing down. Like, this is done. It's over with. And he said, no, it's not. This is them just flexing because you pissed them off. And you're going to figure out some kind of compromise. And now it's between $0 and $4 million. And I was like, Dad, we don't have $4 million to settle this case. And he said, $4 million is the ceiling. Now you got to figure out how to bring him back down to the floor. And as I was walking out, and I was still a little bit stressed because it was one of these vague, here's no clear direction, but just, a little bit of guidance. And I was still stressed. And he said, hey, and I turned around, and he said, welcome to the club. And I said, what do you mean? He said, working with clients that are getting sued for things, this is a benchmark of success. This is a notch in your belt. This means that you have built something, that somebody has something that someone else is so threatened by that they want to sue you for. Because this wasn't illegal, illicit actions. This wasn't somebody fraud or stealing money or doing anything immoral. This was just, I didn't like you setting up shop so close to my hometown. And so I'm going to find different ways that you violated this agreement so that I can really stick it to you. And lawsuits, there's a reason that when our communication policy at Shilanski & Associates, we have a tiered level of communication. And what does that mean? That means that my phone does not ring 24/7 from employees. My employees know who they go to in the chain of command and what warrants a phone call. And something that warrants a phone call in our office is a letter from an attorney. So a letter of an attorney is considered a 911 issue. It's a certified letter and it comes in the mail, or if you have a service processor, et cetera. This is something that I share with my clients too. And I say, hey, if you end up getting, one such letter, make sure that you reach out to us right away. Don't respond. Don't do anything else. Let's just take a moment, breathe, walk me through it, and then let's get your counsel involved. Let's engage your counsel as well. So it's part of our chain of command of saying on the communication policy that if we get these letters, make sure you contact us. So I'm going to share with you, I've gotten quite a few recently. And again, those are just benchmarks of success. When people are involved in lawsuits, unfortunately, it's not always because somebody did something wrong. It's because somebody's feelings got hurt. Somebody's upset and they want to flex. And the best way to get your attention is to fire off a letter from an attorney's office. And mind you, we've advised clients to do the same thing, is that a letter from an attorney's office goes pretty darn far. So your clients might be in a situation where they're trying to negotiate, or they're trying to come to some type of remedy with another party. And you might give them the advice of hire an attorney, pay a couple $100, no more than $1,000, have them write a letter and see what kind of response you get. And so I get that this is par for the course. If you can't get somebody's attention, you try and try and try, and then you send a letter from an attorney. attorney. So this summer here in Alaska, I live along a golf course, a beautiful golf course. And when we moved in, there were covenant codes and restrictions, but there was no homeowner association in place. In fact, the guy that had started this development, he ended up passing away a couple months before. And in our covenant codes and restrictions, he had appointed himself the head of the Architectural Control Committee. Well, when he passed, nobody resumed, and he didn't incorporate the homeowner association. So anyhow, 3 years goes by, and I've been talking to neighbors. Does anyone know who our ACC is, our Architectural Control Committee? Who do we submit our plans to if we want to do landscaping, develop, all this kind of stuff? And everyone's like, oh, it doesn't exist. It's actually kind of defunct. Here's all these different things. So I go through all the process in the CCR. So they say, email the person, I mailed him a letter certified, find out he's dead. The letter gets returned, of course, then start asking around to different people who's in charge. Nobody's in charge. I show different neighbors, throw a big party, show the neighbors our development plan. Does anyone have any objections? Nope. So it looks good. No problem. It's going to be gorgeous, etc. Then I start building on my property. And on my property, I installed a half basketball court. And now because it is adjacent to the golf course and we have a 50-foot setback, my basketball court is 42 feet from the property line. And so we build this up and all of a sudden we get to 95% of the construction. So this has been going on for years, right? This is like a slow development process, as landscaping projects often are, coupled by the fact that we live in Alaska, so we have a shortened season in which we can get stuff done. So all summer, people have been going by, oh my gosh, I love your project. This looks so great. I've been talking to the superintendent of the golf course. He's been coming down. I've been running plans by him. Hey, does this meet the aesthetics? You're a private business. I'm a private homeowner, but we both have to live here. I want to make sure that we're being good neighbors to each other. Oh yeah, definitely. Maybe you could do this, plant some trees here. Wonderful. I'd be happy to do that. So we've been doing this whole time. We get to the 95% mark. I mean, we are button up hatches now on this project. And all of a sudden, my office calls me because I get a letter from an attorney and it's certified. And so I said, okay, great. Well, scan it over, send it to me, and let me see what it is. So I look at this letter, and it is an attorney who represents the golf course and the homeowners association, which I said was already defunct. And he says, by the way, you have 30 days to take down all of your landscaping that you didn't have approval from. Otherwise, we're going to take you to court, and there's going to be all of this, you might have these injunction reliefs, you're going to be charged all these fees, these fines, and you have to remove everything. Well, a basketball court is made out of concrete, so it's pretty darn heavy, right? And removing it is going to be very significant and not to mention ugly. And this is like, we are done with the landscaping project. So they didn't say anything all year long, but all of a sudden I get this letter from the attorney. And so what I did was I got this letter and I said, okay, hold on, let me wrap my mind around this. So I start dissecting the attorney's letter. And the attorney says that he represents a homeowner association that's incorporated. Well, I never received any bylaws, articles of organization, or inclusion in said homeowner association. So I get on the phone with the state of Alaska and I start doing a little bit of reconnaissance, right? I start doing my due diligence. I start grabbing the paperwork. What makes sense? Am I in violation? How did this happen? And because I'm pausing and I'm just sort of dispassionately looking at all the information, and mind you, my spouse is freaking out, right? Like, oh my gosh, we have to tear it down. It's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. Do I get somebody out here right now? And I was like, hold on, pause. And they're like, no, we have this letter. We have 30 days to comply. And I'm like, yeah, that attorney gave me a 30-day bogus number because he wanted to set a clock. But that clock works both ways. And so I'm not going to overreact. I'm going to pause, control my temper, do my due diligence, research all of my information on the subject matter, gather everything. And here's tip number 1. So this is going to be an action item because at some point in your career, and I hope it doesn't happen to you, but it is a benchmark of success, you're going to have some type of regulatory or you're going to have some type of legal action. So the very first thing I do is I immediately throw open a spreadsheet and I start doing a timeline of events. And the timeline of events is broken down: dates, times, parties involved, form of communication, link to said communication, because a lot of things happen via text or email. And so I'm doing this in order to build up my case and my timeline. And by the way, this just blows my mind to the day. I'm making this timeline. Like this timeline is just me going back and doing research and putting this information together to paint a picture. But when you present this timeline of events to other people, it blows their mind. They just take it with such gravitas of all of these different situations and things that were happening. I mean, it just really gets them on tilt when you present this timeline. So I'm presenting this timeline and I start documenting everything. And then I start printing down my emails. I start taking screenshots of JPEGs on my texts and I upload them into a file. And I do this because now I'm getting all of my evidence. Now, my goal is we're going to settle outside of court. This isn't going to be an issue. But what I'm doing is I'm already thinking about it, right? And that's the big thing. I'm doing a bunch of work because I'm mentally already occupied with the thoughts. I'm mentally already engaged and plagued by this letter and plagued by this lawsuit, plagued by whatever is happening. And so if that's the case, why not put that energy to work? Instead of going, oh, I think this is what happened, or I think that's what happened. I'm like, no, let me check my own facts because my own facts are going to come out eventually anyways. Now, here's what I don't do. I don't delete anything. I don't edit anything. I don't try to defraud, right? The facts are what they are, and they will always come out in the end. So I start taking all that information, I start throwing it in a Google Drive folder, and I just am going through this mental exercise because one, when I hire my attorney, they're going to want it anyway. And two, if this ever really does go to court, now I have this case file already built, and I'm not going to spend months or years, sort of thinking about it. And it's also a really great mental exercise because now it's done in my mind. Now I'm getting something done, and I'm being proactive instead of stewing on possibilities that may or may not come to fruition. So I'm getting this timeline together. And then a couple weeks go by, 2 weeks go by, and I say, okay, you know what? I think I got a case here. I think I got a really gosh darn good case because the homeowner association is incorporated. I've read a bunch of different case laws on it, how things have been cited. And I don't think I'm going to acquiesce. In fact, I think I'm going to hire my own attorney. So I hire my own attorney and, give her the information, give her the file, everything that I've built, which makes her life so much easier, right? Because now she doesn't have to do a bunch of research. Now she's just validating the information I gave her. And we fire off a letter back because guess what? You send me a letter from an attorney, you're going to probably get one back. So I fire off this letter for the attorney and we just say, Kajiwa. Give me everything. Show me what you have. Show me your articles of incorporation. Show me every meeting minute. Show me your guest log of attendees. Show me every decision that was ever made by this architectural control committee because the gentleman in charge of it is dead. And so all of a sudden we start asking for information and it's crickets. It is crickets. So they were hardcore pressed to get this information or to make me acquiesce in 30 days. But all of a sudden I say, hey, listen, I'm not going to meet your timeline because I have not had substantial time to review information. I need this information from you. So what did I do with that timeline? They get the timeline they gave me. I just kicked it down the line. I retained counsel. That means that they cannot talk to me. They must talk to my attorney. Now, here's the interesting part. We're going through this process and we get really, really close to their timeline, their 30 days. And all of a sudden I get a call at my Anchorage office and this gentleman tracks me down and he is a member in the partnership. And he calls and he says, Jamie, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these letters, this correspondence, this information from your attorney. And here's the reality. I wanted to call you and have just a human to human, heart to heart conversation and not involve attorneys in this matter. Now, what is the very first thing that you are thinking? If the very first thing you were thinking is, wow, that's great. I'm so, elated that this gentleman called you. And if some more problems could be solved, if people could just talk heart to heart and they don't have to involve litigation and you guys could figure out a solution, then you're missing the forest for the trees. He called me after hiring an attorney and demanding that I acquiesce to their requests. He engaged the attorney. I did not engage attorneys at first. He did. So now that he's calling me and saying, hey, let's just have a heart to heart, let's figure this out without attorneys, what's most likely his case? He ain't got squat. They don't have squat. They're not going to be able to enforce anything. Now, if my very first reaction had been, great, I'd love to acquiesce. What do I need to do? I'm so scared, blah, blah, blah. All I would have done is validate their authority instead of questioning it and saying, hey, I got a couple questions. Maybe I will have to take down this basketball court. But before then, let's figure out if we can come up with a solution. And my feet aren't stuck in the sand on this matter. I'm not going to rip everything out, especially when they told me that their objection to the basketball court was that it was a competing activity. a competing activity to golf. Because in your mind, could you imagine one day you and your buddies are all getting together to go play golf, and you drove an hour outside of city limits to this golf course. But as you drive by a private home that has a basketball course, you're thinking, oh my gosh, screw golf. I want to shoot hoops today on that homeowner's property. No, that is never going to happen. That is never your thought. So I scrap that, and I don't validate or substantiate that they have any authority. Instead, I want to say, hey, give me the reason that you have this authority. Show me what I'm missing. And I'm not coming at it egotistically. I'm not coming at it like a bulldog, although that is always an option. Instead, I'm saying, you've asked me to do something, but I need to know what's in it for me. Why do I need to do this? What violation did I make? What authority do you have as a private business on me as a private homeowner? So as him and I start talking, he says, oh, you violated the CCRs. And I said, well, sir, actually, your CCRs require me to do 1, 2, and 3. And I did 1, 2, and 3, and I never heard a response from anyone because you didn't go forward. You didn't complete your documents. You created these covenant code and restrictions. Your covenant code and restrictions required the incorporation of a homeowners association, and you signed all the documents as a member of the golf course LLC, but you didn't sign them as a member of the HOA incorporated business because you failed to go incorporate that business. So you paid for all this legal work. You did all of these different things to put in place to protect this community. But at the very last minute, you shit the bed. You didn't finish it. How many times does that happen? How many clients do you know that forget to execute their will? They forget to execute their beneficiary designations. They forget to do one last final step. You, as a business owner, have you forgotten to do one last final step? You've got your business, you've got your LLC, you've got your defined benefit plan, maybe you got a 401k, something else happening in the business. You've done all of these things to set it up. You've got your errors and omission policies so that your license is protected. But did you go out and get business owners insurance? Really think about that. Think about how many times we get 85, 90% to the finish line and we forget to do things. We don't purchase the business owner's insurance policy, which by the way is the cheapest insurance we're going to buy and gives us the most protection for our entities. We don't go out and do buy-sell agreements. We forget to do life insurance to execute those buy-sell agreements. The cobbler's kid goes barefoot because we allow for us to go barefoot. This happens all the time across all industries. It's not just clients that are negligible in this area. It's also us as financial advisors. It's also us as people in our household. We forget to go that extra second and tidy everything up and finish it. Now, had this gentleman, when this first became an issue, had his first call not been to his attorney's office to send me a letter, because what was he trying to do? He didn't contact me first. He didn't have anyone from the golf course come contact me. He didn't knock on my door. He didn't do any of those things. What he did was he went out to the golf course, took some pictures, sent it over to his attorney and said, send this woman a letter. And so they send me a letter because why? Because most people get a letter from an attorney and they start cowering in their boots and they start immediately acquiescing because we don't want the hassle of having to fight something. It's stupid when it could have been resolved with just a phone call. He didn't pick up the phone. He didn't come knock on my door. He didn't say, hey, Jamie, listen, this is kind of a violation of our CCRs. Do you think we can make some changes before you finish? This project has taken several years and it just became into the last final stages. So at any point, any waypoint in that communication, they could have come forward and said, actually, this is a problem for us. Would you mind doing it this way? And guess what I would have done? I'm a good neighbor. I'd have been like, you know what? Here's where I'm willing to compromise. But instead, you shot off in a letter from an attorney to me and you thought I was going to be the type of person that was going to back down. Little did you know, my father taught me how to deal with bullies very early on, and I don't get often intimidated. And instead, what I want to do is I want to pause on those emotions, pause and put facts before feelings. What's the very first thing I did? I didn't freak out. I didn't go to my contractor and start him to tell him to rip things out. I didn't pick up the phone and start blowing up the other party. Instead, I paused and I started going through the information. I started dissecting the letter page by page and coming up with the information. Does this match what my thought and feelings on the subject were? Do I have facts to substantiate my point of view? Did I actually do what I thought was correct? Or am I just feeding myself a lie? Did I think in my mind I was doing everything correct, but I really was in violation? And so I paused and put my timeline together, gathered all of my facts, and then checked my feelings. Now, once I got done looking at all my facts in sequential order, I was like, I do have a case. So I will hire an attorney now, and I will turn this over to somebody because this isn't correct. This isn't right. And so many times we just need to do that step. Now, what I wish would have happened, like I shared, I wish this guy would have called me during any stage in the last 3 years and said, hey, let's figure this out. But that didn't happen. And so now I want to turn to something that just recently happened in our own practice where it's a very similar situation. Instead of another professional picking up the phone and calling and saying, hey, Jamie and Micah, I see you're doing all this stuff online. It's a little bit similar to something I'm doing. I think there's some copyright infringement. Can we have a conversation about this? And I'd have been like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Could you send me your trademark stuff and let's figure this out and we'll take it down? Because people copyright and trademark everything. My spouse is a fly fishing guide and it drove me freaking nuts because there was this academic, she was an attorney. She was she's a really smart, great attorney. And she's a great woman in the fly fishing space as well. And so as a female fly fisherman, she trademarked women fly fishing. Women fly fishing. Those 2 words she trademarked. So nobody could ever use those 2 words in a sentence to brand and to market again. That is crazy talk. That is just absolute nuts. And she did it because she wanted to dominate the space. She wanted to dominate this area. And I thought, my goodness, those two words, women and fly fishing, don't get to exclusively belong to you. But because she is an attorney and because she filled out her paperwork and got the trademark for them, they do. And so this happens a lot. You will, one of my English professors in college told me, Jamie, there are no great writers. There are only great rewriters. And because we learn, we move, we feel something, we see somebody else's usage of words, and we write our own context around that. And so in business, this happens a lot. You might accidentally use somebody else's language in your own marketing. So we get this letter from the attorney. And of course, according to our communication policy, this becomes a phone call to me. And then Micah and I become aware of it. It says, hey, we got the certified letter from an attorney and we've got some trademark infringement issues. You have to cease and desist immediately. What bold words. Cease and desist immediately. You know, our CO, they were really on tilt about it because we don't get a lot of letters from an attorney and they do make the 911 list. When we got this, she was like, oh my goodness, what do we need to do? I said, whoa, pause. First rule, pause. Don't do anything. Second rule, start putting together a timeline. Third rule, start asking for information. So we got this letter from an attorney saying you have this copyright infringement. You have to do X, Y, and Z, cease and desist, or you can license this copyright from me for X amount of dollars every single year. And of course, the words that they are claiming that they've trademarked are really generic. I mean, all of us as financial advisors, like a good 30% of us are probably using the same words. So I pause and then I start looking and I start going to this, I said, who owns this copyright? And I start going to the copyright information and I see, and I'm going through this person's website and I'm just scouring, looking for how or where they're using this trademark or copyright. And it isn't in any of their current marketing. Like I cannot find it. So I go to social, I go to YouTube. I mean, I'm doing like a 5th page dive on Google. So that is about as deep dive as you probably get is 5 or 7 pages into Google. And I cannot find this information anywhere. So now I'm going back and I'm saying, okay, well, just because you sent me a letter saying that you have this trademark, how do I know you actually do have this trademark? So show me. Show me how you have it. Show me how you own this information. Now, they probably do. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. They probably do have this trademark and they probably want us to stop using it. And they, of course, showed pictures and it was our YouTube that got their attention. So it was our YouTube videos. So they sent a picture of us using it on YouTube and fired it off to us. But the first thing that I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to pause. I'm going to gather my information. I'm going to say, hey, when did they start using this? And when did we start using this? Because every time I talk to a copyright or trademark attorney, it is he who files first. So it is he who claims that they started using that first. So once I start gathering this information, I'll validate their claim. And then I'm going to go back through all of our context and say, hey, when did we start using this? Because what if they started using it 10 years ago, but we've been using it 20? Or vice versa, what if they've been using it for 20 and we've been using it for 10? So I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm not going to get upset, but I want you to think about this because at some point in your own success, you're going to hit this benchmark. You're going to hit this level of success. And when you do, I hope these words of like, pause, don't freak out. like whatever your first reaction is normally the incorrect one, because that is an emotional response. We feel fear, we feel threatened, and we have to give some type of emotional response to that. But instead, just go for a walk. Like, just take it, just talk about it, just go for a walk, get outside, talk to somebody else that you trust their opinion on, but don't overreact just because somebody sends you a letter from an attorney. Do you have to take it serious? Yes, but you know what? Most of the time, they're garbage letters from attorneys. Now, again, what I wish this individual had done, because it was a male and a female that owned this practice, why didn't they just pick up the phone and call us? They're financial advisors too. Why didn't they just call us? They knew how to find us. I mean, they found our social media. They're clearly following our channel. So why didn't you just call our office and say, hey, listen, I think we've got a copyright or a trademark infringement. I'd love 5 or 10 minutes to talk to Jamie and Micah and see if we can work this out. And you know what would have happened? We would have said, you know what, we've been thinking for the last year of changing the branding on this, and you just gave us a great catalyst. Thank you so much for reaching out, because that's what we did. Actually, this is a good story. At Shilanski Associates, our RIA up in Anchorage, Alaska, our subsidiary is Plan Your Federal Retirement. And this is our marketing channel in which we go through retirement benefits that pertain to federal employees. And it's a unique space. It's phenomenal. And we dominate a lot of it. But there are also a lot of other people that work and operate in that same space. Now, Micah and I are believers, not only in Christ, but we believe in the law of abundance, that there's so much out there, that fair competition, like we don't have to go and be the only people in this space. We're not looking to be the only, because we can't service everyone. There are 4 million people in the United States who get paychecks from the federal government. 2 million of them are civilian and 2 million of them are military. There's no way Micah and I can handle 4 million people. We don't even want to handle 200. We're really particular about our book of business. We have a select number of people whose lives we want to impact and help. So there is so much abundance in this space. And so what it came to our attention, somebody else we didn't know, we don't go looking for this, but they had brought it up and they said, hey, listen, you know, I'm following you, and I'm also following this other financial advisor. And this other financial advisor, his content isn't similar to yours. It's exactly like yours. And so we said, oh, okay. So, you know, we jumped on his site, we started looking at things, and it was a copycat of our website, and it was a copycat of my articles. And I went to college too. I know what plagiarism looks like. And if it wasn't verbatim, it was every other word. You know, I started talking to Micah about it, and you know, the first reaction from some of our peers are like, you need to sue him. You need to sue this kid, shut him down before he ever gets started. Why? Why would we do that? Why would we sue somebody before they even had a chance if they didn't know what they were doing was necessarily wrong? Maybe he was just thinking that he was going to replicate success. And we talk about that a lot at the Perfect RA. Do what works. He saw something that was working and he replicated it. Now, he replicated it too identically. So we do need to have a conversation about that, because that is a little ethical violation there. And so guess what we did? We picked up the phone. Micah called the guy and said, hey, listen, I think you're doing great things. I really appreciate the content that you're putting out. Unfortunately, it's too much like mine. My attorneys want to jump in and they want to start suing you, but I'd rather just give you the benefit of the doubt. And could you change it up? And you know what? He was grateful. He said, I've been following you and Matt for years. I love all the stuff that you're doing. It means so much to me that you reached out. I did not mean any disrespect. I was not trying to violate anything. I'd be happy to make those changes and adjustments. And we said, great, thank you. Could you get it done in the next, 60 days? And he said, absolutely. This will be top priority for me, and I will get those things done. And then he hung up the phone, and Micah called and said, man, what a great guy. What a great guy. Just getting started. He's trying to enter the space. Talk to him about this. He's going to go on and make changes. And I said, the hell, kid? Why didn't you offer him a job then? And so Mike was like, that's a great idea, So we reached out to him. We said, we love what you're doing. Clearly you want to do the same thing we're doing. Why don't you come work for us? Now, he was too entrepreneurial minded. He got quite a few different other businesses that we wouldn't be able to sign off on our RA, but we wished him the best. There's enough work out there for all of us that you don't have to always sling mud. But it just really drives home the fact that we are going to be in situations as professionals where we have opportunities to take a high road, or to just look at somebody and say, you don't deserve the success. You don't deserve what you have. And so I have to find a way to tear you down. And now what I think happened, and most recently when we got this letter from the attorney about this trademark infringement, there's two things that happen. One, they, him and her, just don't like us, right? Maybe they've seen our podcast. Maybe they've followed the channel. Maybe Matthew Jarvis has notoriously pissed him off on LinkedIn. That happens quite a bit. Whatever it is, they don't like us, So they were searching and they were finding for something and they found one thing and they were like, oh, this is it. I'm gonna send them this. That could have been a possibility. The reality is, I bet they had one of their clients go through our process. And so because we offer a lot of federal employee information online, you can buy those programs. And so we think more so what probably happened versus them scouring the internet and trying to find a little boutique RIA up in Anchorage, Alaska. They probably had a client go through and say, wow, I found this information. I really like this guy's stuff. What do you guys think about it? And that happens a lot. If you have clients and your niche is not federal employees, you should send them through our process, not to become our clients. Like, I'm not trying to poach your client, but we offer a lot of really great content, and those could be excellent conversation starters that they can in turn bring to you. Not that we're trying to steal that client. You should have them listen to the content so that they can come back and discuss these topic points with you, because federal employee benefits, it's its own language, it's its own beast, and it's robust. And, I was just joking with a client about it, that they write the manual for federal employees so well enough that you don't understand it and that you're afraid that if you make the wrong move, you're going to lose everything. And, he's like, that is exactly the intent the author had when they were writing this manual. And we got a good laugh about that. So if you have clients that are federal employees and you're not super comfortable in that area of expertise, do send them through our training. It's really good for them, and have them come back to you with questions, because once they do, and you even watch the same content, you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now I've got it. We had TPR live last year, and we were sitting up on the rooftop, and there was another financial advisor, great guy, and he is in the federal employee space. And he said, Micah, I've got a couple client questions. Do you think I can ask you this? And I'm happy to pay for your time. And Micah said, you know what? We're just sitting out here BSing, fire away. And they started brainstorming. But think about how much opportunity there is when you get to network. And this is what our live events are 100% about, is that you get to go in there ego-free, completely transparent, collaborative, and get to ask other colleagues, other professionals in the financial planning, in the tax space, questions that you have. So many financial advisors and their offices wander around out there feeling embarrassed or ashamed to ask a question, because that's the reaction they get from people. I can't believe you don't know this. Why? There's a lot of stuff I don't know. And guess what happens? I ask a question and then somebody shares some knowledge, and then I get to go learn about those different subject matters. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to connect with somebody in the perfect RA, this is one of the reasons that people love the forum. They love reaching out to other members. So, at the Perfect RA, we have two types of membership. We have the Backstage Pass, we have Invictus. The Backstage Pass is for do-it-yourselfers. All the stuff is there, but you got to figure it out on your own. And Invictus is really coaching and accountability to take you to that next level. These are people that put their money where their mouth is, and man, do they level up. And one of the things that we do these masterminds with Invictus members, they say, you know what, Matt, Micah, you guys, great information. But what I love most about coming to these is that I'm surrounded with like-minded people. I'm around people that believe in abundance, they believe in growth, and they want to help other people. I can ask them a question and they're not going to look down on me like I'm stupid for not knowing the answer. They're going to say, hey, you know what? I had a case like this. Here's some planning strategies we used. Is any of this information useful to you? And that's what it should be about. Could you imagine if attorneys didn't do that? Could you imagine if medical professionals did not do that? If you had those two types of industries, how prohibitive would the expansion of their knowledge be if they weren't allowed to collaborate? If they walked around in this independent shame, because that's what it is for financial advisors, it's independent shame, and they never once collaborated with another professional. That's so sad to even think about. All right, TPR Nation, this podcast and everything we do at the Perfect RA is 100% about giving you actionable advice that you can take right now and implement into your own practice. I share with you that my father taught me that a badge of success is getting involved in your first lawsuit. If it's yours, if it's your clients, if it's a friend's, it's something, because it's easier to tear down than build up, unfortunately. And like I tell anyone when they say they don't have any grounds, they can't do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, anyone can file a lawsuit for $350 and you still have to deal with it. That's the court fee up here in Alaska. So whether or not it's valid, you still have to deal with it. And when you have that happen to you, breathe, take a step back. Do not overreact. Whatever your first reaction is, do not do that because that's an emotional response. Also, make your timeline of events. Really substantiate your thoughts and feelings because you're already going to be thinking about this. You're already going to be sitting there losing sleep over it. You might as well do it in a productive way that helps your attorney or yourself out later. And separate yourself from those facts. Don't delete anything. Don't edit anything. Don't make things up. What happened, take out the information, make it factual, and put it all inside of there. A lot of times, and this is the big one. This is the big one. It's notes. It's that you meant to do a memo because you talked to a client and you never recorded the memo. And so all of a sudden now you're jumping up and you're recording that memo after a lawsuit has happened. That's inadmissible. That is really, really bad to have happen. Now, if you need to brain vomit and get all of those thoughts and feelings out, totally do that. But don't try to backdate information. Don't make it up. Don't delete it. Whatever that first response is, don't do that. Be factual above all else. Second of all, people want to play stupid games. They can win stupid prizes. Ask questions. Just because somebody tells you cease and desist, just because somebody tells you have 30 days to do something, ask those questions. Why? What gives you the authority? How can we do this? Where could we have compromised? And then I would say that the final action item is if you're on the opposing side of this, if you're super annoyed at another professional because they did X, Y, and Z, pick up the damn phone. Don't be a coward. Pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, can we have a brief conversation about this? Save yourself all of the hassles by taking the coward's approach of having an attorney fire off a letter that all it's going to do is put somebody's hackles up or scare them to death. And neither one of those are good because you don't know who's on the other line. You don't know if you're getting a pit bull or a guinea pig. Because if you come at me like that, I know how attorneys bill. I work and have friends that are a lot of attorneys. So I'll play a stupid game right back with you. You were too afraid to pick up the phone? Cool. Tell me how much you like your billing going up because I can play stupid games with attorneys all day long on your dime. And I'm not the only person in the world like that. So if you don't know who you're contending with, if you don't know who you're up against, then just assume that you're going to be able to have a good, earnest, honest conversation with them instead of unleashing this other part of them that they don't want to have unleashed either. There are other ways around it. There are always more options. TPR Nation, this is Jamie Shilanski in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA